Well, it's the start of the strongest tournament in the world of chess right now. The Tata Steel Chess 2023 has kicked off. And in the first round itself, we had Gukesh, who's India number 3 rated 2725, take on the world number 2, Ding Liren. And Ding is playing perhaps his last tournament before his world championship match against Nepo. So definitely all wanted to see what form was he in. Was he going to keep his opening repertoire concealed? Would Gukesh continue his form in classical chess that he has shown to us in these past few months, like the Olympiad? So there were a lot of questions. Before we get to the game, let me show you a couple of pictures from the event. This is Vishy Anand, who is hitting that gong. This is a traditional Vaikanzi gong there, and that signals the start of the round. We also had an Indian clash between Arjun Erigaisi and Pragnananda. Very interesting game, but like remained equal throughout and ended in a draw. That's Arjun, and that is Prag, very focused. And this is the playing hall. There are 7 boards for the masters, 7 boards for the challengers. And we'll come to the results and the results of other players as well. But let's first get with the game. Okay, so Gukesh, playing with the white pieces, opens the game with d4. Knight to f6 by Ding, c4, e6, knight f3, and b6. This is the Queen's Indian, and these days this move is somehow considered to be a little less popular than, let's say, d5. That is the Queen's Gambit declined. And also bishop b4 check has started to gain a lot of popularity. That is the Bogo Indian. But b6 has been played so many times before. g3 is the main move. Bishop a6. Now you are attacking the pawn on c4, and there are a few ways you can defend it. b3 is the main move, and that was played. Check on b4, bishop d2, blocking it, and now you go back. So you provoke the bishop in a place where it doesn't want to be, and then you go back because the bishop wants to be on b2. And also, just so that you know, knight bd2 is a not a good idea because of bishop c3, rook b1, and bishop b7. It's a very important move, trying to trap the rook here, and also threatening bishop takes d4 when the rook would be hanging on h1. So that's how this does not work. So you have to play bishop d2, then you go back, and then bishop g2. And the old line here, where when I was growing up and I saw so many games played by Anand, and like in the 2000 era, was c6. And they used to play bishop c3, they would go d5, knight would come to e5, then knight f d7, take here, knight d2, and this is how the games would continue. Very solid line. But Ding plays it in a different way. He castles, and generally what was not liked here was that white could go knight c3, and then if you go c6, because you want to play d5, but when he takes, you want to take back with the c pawn often. So that's why you play c6. Like if you play d5 here to stop e4, then in such a position this structure is somehow considered to be slightly favorable for white. So c6, e4, d5, ed, cd, knight e5. This is one of the other important lines that you should definitely look at. There are games here. In fact, Ding himself has played this before. And bishop b7, castles, knight c6, and bishop f4 gives white a small edge. So maybe knight c3 is something to look at, and Ding might have something there. But Gukesh decides to castle. And now he could play c6, but he went d5 straight away. Knight to c3 was played. Now this is interesting. Gukesh is ready to sacrifice a pawn, but that's a very dangerous pawn to take. Mainly because if you take, I take back, you take here, and now comes the move knight e5. I attack your bishop and also the rook on a8, and that's just bad because, okay, you can play bishop d5, But I can take your bishop, ed and queen b3 with rook c1 coming up, and very good compensation for the pawn thanks to this bishop on g2, which is very, very powerful. So c6 was played here, just solidifying the position. And now bishop to f4. Once again, Gukesh is happy to give the pawn. He could have played knight e5 here. It is possible, but then you have to worry about the d4 pawn hanging. And so that's the reason why he started with bishop f4. And here the interesting variation. Take on c4, pawn takes, and bishop takes. Now try to find what should white play here. This is an important question for you. Try to figure out what would you do here as white. Yeah, so the move here which many would play is knight e5, but it does not help because after bishop a6, knight takes c6, knight takes c6, bishop takes c6, and bishop rook c8. Black is doing completely fine. It's equal. So the move that you had to find, and if you found it, kudos to you, is bishop takes b8. Fantastic move. Because now after rook takes, you go knight e5. And now you are attacking this bishop as well as this pawn. If it goes to b5, you can always push it off with a4. If it goes to d5, you can push it away with e4, in fact, trap it. And so this is winning position for white. Okay, so that's the reason why you cannot win c4 pawn. He goes knight bd7. And now Gukesh here plays a move which is quite good. He takes on d5, cd. And he actually puts a question to Ding. And I think the question is whether you will take with the c pawn or the e pawn. Because both are possible in this position. I think c would have also been good. But Ding wanted more complex play. In fact, he could also take with the knight, and that could also have been very good. You drop your bishop back to d2 and then knight f6 with the idea of c5 coming up. Black is doing very well here as well. But Ding wanted a complex position, so he took on d5 with the pawn. And here, if you're thinking about this position, few moves that would come readily to your mind are rook e1, so that later on this doesn't become a problem. A3 with the idea of b4, that could be one. Rook c1 also comes to the mind, but then you are a little bit irritated with bishop a3 idea. So the move that Gukesh played next, I would say, is a typical Gukeshi idea. Gukesh likes to play this way. He goes knight e1. And while this move doesn't look great, one can understand what Gukesh wants to do. He wants to put his knight on d3. And I really like what Ding Liren did next. And I would like you to think a bit here as to what would you play here as black. It's a regrouping move, but a very beautiful one. So if you came up with rook c8, that's a fine move. No problems. I mean, that looks pretty good. But the right move here is rook e8. And the reason is that after knight d3, the place where Gukesh wants to go with his knight, you go knight f8. And now what you're doing is you're coming to e6. You will attack d4 and f4 and then go for c5. So you realize that Gukesh's plan with knight e1, knight d3 doesn't look the best because his d4 pawn becomes soft. Let's say if you go bishop d2 now, so that in order to meet knight e6 with e3, then the knight is hanging. So somehow it's not fitting in, this entire thing. So Gukesh here already started to get a bit uncomfortable. He went bishop g5. Now came knight e6, attacking d4 and g5. So he took. And the price you had to pay for your coordination was to give up the bishop pair. So yes, white is now well coordinated. His pawn is protected, but his bishop pair is gone. And that's here. It's Ding Liren's move. Ding Liren to play. Black to play. What would you play? So many different ideas in this position, but one is a little bit more concrete, and that is what Ding did. Black to play. Knight to c5. Well, did you even spot it? Because this works thanks to this knight which is loose on c3. take on c5, bishop c3, and now he went rook c1. I liked Ding's next move, which was very cool. He went queen f6. The main point is that if you play bishop f6, then I can take. Now c6 is hanging, so you take with the queen, queen c2, rook d1, and like white is doing pretty well here. So he played queen f6, queen c2, and now the next move again is very important, d4. And you will realize that what black essentially is trying to do is open up the position as much as he can, because he has the bishop pair. When you have the bishop pair, you should try to open up the position for them. So after Gukesh took on b6, ab, rook d1 was played. I was just wondering if ed is possible here, but after bishop d4 you cannot take bishop takes c6, because after rook c8 this is pinned here and it is trouble for you. This is pinned here, this is pinned, rook e6 is coming up, it's not good. So rook f d1 made a lot of sense to come out of at least this pin here. Rook d8, he took on d4, bishop takes. Okay, now came the very important moment of this entire game, and it's white to move. What would you play here? Yeah, so Gukesh went for knight f4. I can understand this move, but in fact it's after this he's just worse. The move that is really good, and by the way, if any of you thought knight b4, that is a mistake because of bishop e2. And problem is the rook is attacked and also the pawn here. You might want to go rook e2, but that would not work because of queen c6 takes and king h1, and white is still in the game. So but bishop e2 is very, very powerful. It's just winning. So knight b4 is bad. Knight f4 was not good, but the move that is good is bishop takes c6, and you need to snatch this pawn. By the way, if you tried to snatch this pawn with the queen, that would be a mistake because of bishop d3. And the point is, if you take the queen, I take back with the bishop, I'm a piece up. And if you take with the rook here, then there are many ways, but queen f2 and rook e1 is just over. But bishop c6, I believe what might have made Gukesh a little bit nervous is rook c8. I mean, you could also play rook e7. It's playable, this move, but rook c8 is what might have really created some issues. But now you go knight f4. And if you play bishop b5, which I thought was logical, you want to go rook e6, but the knight controls that square. So you can't go rook e6. So bishop b5, and now there are two ways to play. I think the best is bishop b5, rook c2, rook c2. And this position which you have is actually around equal. And there are some tactics like rook d8, rook d2, bishop takes, king takes, rook d2, rook d2, g5. And in the end, the position sort of equalizes, like take here, rook f2, and it would end in a draw. So I think this was the best. If Gukesh would have found bishop c6, he would have been doing okay. But he played knight f4, and his point is he doesn't want to get into this pin business. Also with knight f4, he's keeping the e2 square under control. But Ding now plays an excellent move. He finds a great move here. And maybe you would like to try and think about it. There are two good moves here. What would you play? G5 was played by Ding. Fantastic move. Excellent choice. Hitting the knight and asking it to move. The other good move here is just the very solid c5, and this bishop on d4 is an absolute monster. So g5, and now if you go back to d3, you have just wasted a lot of time. And in fact, after bishop d3, rook d3, queen f2 is just game over, because after take the rook is hanging. So you can't go back. So you have to go to h5, which is good. Queen h6 played by Gukesh, by Ding, which is again a good move. Now the knight is hanging, it's trapped. So you must either go g4 or bishop f3. G4 could be met with rook e2, so that's why Gukesh went bishop f3, defending as well as taking control the e2 square. Now c5, very strong. G4 with the idea of getting your knight from G3 to f5, and now came a very important move. Black to play. What would you do here? Try to think. This is, I think, the moment where Ding won the game. He played brilliant move. So you do realize that here, if white gets knight g3 to f5, white would be doing very well because f5 is a weak square. And so one of the ideas that could come to your mind is bishop c8 to take control of that square. And after knight g3, the game goes on. Maybe queen h3 is a good move and black is doing well. So definitely bishop c8 is worthy of consideration. But to show that Ding Liren is in just scintillating form for the world championship, he played the move f5. Brilliant chess. I'm really amazed that he found this move. Now the point is, if you take with the queen, in comes bishop c8. You have to move back with your queen. And now rook f8. And with this bishop here, looking here, and this rook looking here, this is already curtains. I mean, this is huge position. And an idea like king g2 just doesn't work because of rook f3, king f3, queen c6. The king is just going to get mated on this diagonal. And this is also one very nice thing. Once the light squared bishop is gone, this diagonal becomes very weak. Okay, so g4, f5, and in case if you were to take with this pawn, then I'll go g4. Again, very nice move. Take here, otherwise you lose the knight. And while you can play queen g5, which is powerful, queen c6 is just game over because bishop b7 and that is finished. So Gukesh finds a good move here. He plays knight g3 and he is a big fighter. And he actually finds very good moves next, fg4 by Ding, and we know that taking here is not good because of bishop b7 followed by queen c6. Never can you play f3 because of this bishop, so that is lost. So he went knight f5. Ding found a good move, queen f6, and once again Gukesh played an excellent decision, practical decision to play bishop e4. If you take the pawn, then black has a nice move. Try to think what should black do here. It's a nice little move. Bishop c8. And somehow this pin is very dangerous because next move I'm going rook f8 and you are going to lose material. Just this example here, this position is a good example that, I mean, black doesn't have to do anything. He can play rook f7, bring the other rook, bishop h3, queen f3. The king is just so weak with the light square weaknesses. Okay, bishop e4 played, h5, and now came b4. And I really like this move by Gukesh. He realizes that he has to destabilize the center. It's a good move. In fact, I loved Ding's next move, king f8, getting away from all sorts of checks like queen b3 or knight e7 at some point. King f8 is just a good move. And now Gukesh, if he had played a4 here, it would have become very exciting and interesting. Just to give you a sample line, if he goes h4, beef, bishop c8, knight d4, rook d4, rook d4, cd, a5, and just this is a very good example of how the queen is coming in here and white has great compensation for 3 pawns that he's missing. This is around equal. Well, one more point just to show that b4 you cannot take cd here because of knight d4, rook d4, rook d4, queen d4, and then comes the move bishop c6 with the idea of queen g6. So that's the reason why b4 was very cool. King f8, a3. This, I think, is the final error of the game because after this, Ding did not let it go. And I think Gukesh had very little time at this point. He had 1 minute on the clock and he went a3. And in came h4, rook e1, and here it's black to play and finish the game off with a flourish. What do you do? Yeah, many winning moves, but the best one, rook e4. If rook e4, then you have bishop d3. That's a fork there, and if you take here, then queen bishop f2 followed by rook d3, and if you take queen e4, then also bishop d3 was found here by Ding. I mean, that's an important move to play. And then well, if you played even queen e6, if you played queen e7, then take and g3, that's winning. So he went queen e6, takes, take the knight, and in came the move g3, take, and f2 is falling after bishop h3. Gukesh was going to lose a complete rook because of this, and so he resigned here. And a very nice win for Ding Liren. Excellent play, I would say. He played brilliant chess, just like a world number two should, and he managed to down Gukesh in their encounter. So that was very good play by Ding. And just so that you can see the results, this is how the standings are. Nodirbek managed to beat Rapport. Ding managed to beat Gukesh. There were a lot of draws, in fact. Anish drew against Caruana. Wesley drew against, I think it was, I mean, all other games ended in a draw. Yeah, these are the standings. Your pairings of round one: Jordan drew with Wesley, Richard lost to Nodirbek, Caruana drew with Giri, Gukesh lost to Ding, Parham drew with Vincent, Carlson drew with Levon, and Ramesh Babu Pragnananda drew with Arjun. And this is the pairing for round two. Some interesting matchups are Wesley versus Arjun, Levon versus Prag, and Anish versus Gukesh. And in the challengers section, we had both Adiban and Vaishali drawing their games. They were both in some trouble out of the opening, but both saved it against Adiban saved it against Tabatabai, and Vaishali saved it against Thomas Beardson. Today, Vaishali takes on Donchenko in the challengers, and Adiban is up against Beards and Thomas, and that's how it is going to be. Well, I hope you enjoyed this recap and this detailed game analysis. It was fantastic play by Ding, and well, I hope that our Indian youngsters come back, especially Gukesh, who lost his game, and do well in this event. For now, this is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.